Hello les pionniers! Alors, dans ce module, nous avons rendez-vous avec Giles Hutchins, un coach de transformation régénérative des organisations. Souvenez-vous, nous l'avons déjà croisé dans le reportage sur Vivo Barefoot. Alors, lors de cet entretien, nous allons 1. Découvrir les principes du vivant qui, selon Giles, sont les plus inspirants pour sa pratique.
Life, it's never in perfect balance, but it's always finding balance. It's always adapting to change so that it can evolve in a fast-moving world.
Et 2. Partager avec lui 3 expériences de reconnexion en forêt.
The tree has a certain resonance, and that resonance is helping human resonance.
Et que vous pourrez ensuite reproduire chez vous si vous le souhaitez.
I'm Giles Hutchins, and I am Regenerative Leadership author and coach. About 4 years ago, we came to Springwood, me and my family, which is 60 acres of ancient woodland, specifically designed to help leaders connect with nature's wisdom. We've taken leaders, CEOs, whole teams and whole organisations through immersions here that help activate regenerative leadership consciousness.
Pour Giles Hutchins, la conscience régénérative passe par l'adoption d'une nouvelle perspective, celle des systèmes vivants.
When we look at how we manage our companies, we tend to manage them as organisations as machines, sweating assets for short-term returns, and it's stressful, it's driving, and it's focused on efficiency and effectiveness. It's quite mechanistic. When we move to a living systems perspective, we still have that tool, we're still focused on efficiency and effectiveness, but we've widened the context that we're working within by recognising that the organisation is also full of human relationships, and that we can allow ourselves to start becoming more relaxed yet active. It's what we call flow. And that comes from a deeper sense of connection to nature, to our inner nature, who we truly are, and to outer nature, the way life works.
Dans la démarche régénérative, les principes du vivant sont des guides incontournables. Giles, lui, valorise particulièrement les principes de diversité, d'interdépendance et d'équilibre dynamique.
Nature is amazing. This tree here is an ecosystem in itself, nested within the ecosystem of the whole woodland. Just in this handful of soil here, there are more living beings than there are human beings on the entire planet. This is a whole ecosystem in itself. And that diversity can also be played out in our organisations, not just through celebrating different people, different creeds, genders, sexual orientation. All of that is vital and important, but also perceptual horizons, how we see things, bringing different people from different parts of the organisation. So we bring in that diversity of perspective, and all the time that is helping the living system come alive, more able to adapt to change. So a prime example would be allowing different people from different departments to come together in a nature immersive experience to actually share how they're experiencing work at the moment in the organisation. Too much of that diversity and we create too much creativity, things can become too chaotic. So we need to balance that with convergence, with allowing an alignment around a certain structure and a certain set of principles and routines and rituals that help the organisation align around its sense of purpose. The interdependence that we see here in nature, this tree is interconnecting with every other tree in the woodland, constantly sharing, sensing and responding, just as this whole rich array of soil here is interrelating. And our bodies are interconnecting to the living system, but we're also, through our relationships, continuously exchanging information. So our interrelationship keeps that organisation alive. So interdependence is a vital property for life. Even how we think affects the way in which we interrelate. If we're in a conversation with someone and our mind drifts and we drift off, the other person will sense it. Consciously or unconsciously, they will become aware and something shifts. By being fully aware and fully present, we allow that interdependency to become richer and to flow more well throughout the organisation. Another thing about nature is it's always in dynamic balance, it's always changing, whether that be the seasons, things dying and being reborn. So here we have the leaves from last year's autumn and winter that are now decaying into the soil. And by the way, just one of these leaves is more sophisticated than anything the human mind can ever invent. So there's so much that we can learn from nature in terms of how it designs things, but also we can learn about how things change in nature. So this tree has let go of the leaves. It's part of its cycle. It's allowed a death for a rebirth. And that's the same for our organizations, to be able to keep their vitality going, to allow things to let go and then bring in that new insight into the new. So it's a continuous letting go and renewal process, which the ego is challenged by because we try and hold on. So we've got to allow ourselves to be more open. Either we're a bit too yin, a bit too relaxed, a bit too open, or we're a bit too yang, a bit more forced and a bit too focused. And we can balance between the two all the time. And that is what life does. It's never in perfect balance, but it's always finding balance. It's always adapting to change so that it can evolve in a fast-moving world.
Alors exceptionnellement, pour vous, pionniers de la Regen School, Giles Hutchins a accepté de partager et de décrypter 3 de ses expériences de reconnexion immersive.
When I take people into nature, we go through a period of silent walking. And in that silent walking, we're just allowing ourselves to become aware of the body sensations. How our arms are moving, how our legs are moving, how we're breathing, and becoming more conscious of our state of being. For you as a pioneer, the step that you should take is one of starting to feel inside your body when you are tense and when you are open and more connected to yourself and really listening to the other. There's a particular practice that actually comes from the Druids, the indigenous people of Northern Europe, many thousands of years ago, that I use with some of the clients that come here. And it's quite simple, which is that you find a tree that speaks to you, and this can be your own tree near where you live, in a park, wherever, and it becomes your spot, and you form a connection with it. The tree has a certain resonance, and that resonance is helping human resonance. That actually this presence being in nature is calming us, but also allowing us to become more empathic and more able to deal with stress and see other people's perspectives. All of which is relevant for today's fast-moving environment. You then turn over and put your hands over your forehead like a triangle and then rest into the tree this way. That way the whole of your front body is against the tree. So this tree meditation helps align the systems in our body so that we can become more coherent. It's what I call body-mind coherence. And so when we have body-mind coherence, the dorsal and ventral systems of attention in our body start to attune and work together. The hormonal systems start to integrate. The sympathetic and parasympathetic networks integrate. And the heart, the head and the gut, the 3 neurological centers, start to cohere. And when we start to gain that coherence, the frequencies of the body shift. We become more open to alpha, beta, gamma brainwave frequencies. We become more open to intuitive, emotional and somatic, as well as rational ways of knowing. So we can still focus in, we can still get the job done, but we're more active, we're more relaxed, and we're more tapping in to living systems wisdom. by having a feeling like this, an embodied sensation, we can then recall that feeling back in the office.
Cette cohérence, Gilles la développe aussi à travers la pratique du Qigong.
Just 3 nice deep breaths from the belly is enough to start shifting the neurological patterns in our body, allowing us to become more in flow. And so these body-mind coherence practices of Qigong, of walking in nature, of connecting with the tree, all help us become more able to adapt to change. Rather than being in fight, flight and reactive, we're more able to sense, respond. And our leadership dynamic subtly changes from being one of control manage, having to know, having to control, into actually opening and being more in dialogue with life. And we start to sense the emergent and evolutionary potential of the living organization. We get out of our own way and we start to connect with the way in which life is working.